Every time my husband Ethan left to be with his childhood sweetheart, I burned one of the Polaroids or love letters he'd once sent me. The fireplace crackled softly. Tonight, I'd reached number 99.
Emily's scared of the dark, and there's a blizzard coming. She's alone in her apartment, and she's anxious. You need rest. I'll be back first thing tomorrow.
He said it while straightening his military jacket. Calmly, I pulled a document from my bag. He was already halfway out the door, ready to play hero for Emily. He barely glanced at the papers before picking up a pen and scrawling his signature. Then he pressed a quick kiss to my forehead.
Don't wait up. We'll go to your prenatal appointment together tomorrow.
I looked into his dark brown eyes, and gave a quiet nod. Okay. What I didn't tell him was that the medical report, tucked beneath those papers, was a post-surgery certificate from my miscarriage procedure. And what he just signed without reading was our divorce filing. Ethan set down the pen without a second thought, and handed the papers back to me. He even asked,
More insurance forms. There's always so much to sign.
Then, almost as an afterthought,
Once Emily's discharged, maybe we can all fly to New York to visit your parents.
I met his still tender gaze, and said simply, sure. When I didn't explode the way I used to, Ethan visibly relaxed. Thinking of Emily waiting for him at the hospital, he grabbed his keys and the insulated lunch bag, and headed out into the storm. The moment the door clicked shut, I instinctively reached for the old shoebox, looking for one last thing to burn. But the box was empty. Nothing left but a thin layer of ash. I stared at it, my mind drifting back to years ago. Back then, Ethan had sent me 99 love letters and Polaroids from Fort Carson in Colorado, trying to win my heart. His sincerity moved me. I gave up my fashion career in New York, and moved to this remote little Midwestern town to be with him. That sincerity lasted right up until the day Emily moved here to recover. It was supposed to be my birthday. Ethan had bought tickets to a Broadway touring show, and promised to take me to Denver to see it. I stood in the cold outside the theater all afternoon. Eventually, my phone buzzed with a single text.
Sorry, Sarah. Emily had a panic attack at the hospital. I can't leave.
When he finally came home late that night, I caught a heavy wave of jasmine, the unmistakable scent of Emily's favorite Jo Malone perfume. That night, I burned the first photo. He'd given me 99 promises, so I gave him 99 chances. Now, the chances were gone. After that, every time he abandoned me for Emily, I burned something. March the 29th, Emily said her legs hurt and needed him there. I burned the second letter. May the 6th, Emily said the power went out in her apartment, and she was scared of the dark. He went to fix it. I burned the third photo. July the 4th, Independence Day, Emily said the fireworks were too loud and she was having heart palpitations. He went to calm her down. I burned the fourth letter. And so it went. Until 3 days ago, when he left me for the 99th time. And I burned the very last thing left in that box. That afternoon, I went to the base hospital for a routine prenatal checkup. In the hallway, I ran into Emily. She was in a wheelchair. When she saw me, she waved warmly.
Sarah, the nurses are swamped. Could you wheel me out to the rehabilitation garden? It's so nice outside.
I couldn't stand her. But I nodded anyway. I pushed her wheelchair deep into the garden, to a secluded corner, a blind spot where the security cameras didn't reach. Emily stood up. The wheelchair rolled away behind her. She turned to face me, a smug smile playing on her lips.
Sarah, Ethan came to keep me company again last night. He told me you've gotten fat and ugly since getting pregnant. He said even touching you disgusts him now. He said he regrets marrying you. That I'm the one he's always loved. And that baby of yours. Just an accident.
My knuckles went white as I gripped the handles of the wheelchair. Seeing my anger, Emily pressed on.
That unborn baby of yours, it'd be better off never coming into this world. Ethan doesn't even want it.
Shut up. I let go of the wheelchair and took a step toward her. In that instant, Emily let out a sharp shriek, stumbled backward on her own, and sank dramatically to the ground. She looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes.
Sarah, I know you don't like me, but why would you push me?
I didn't. That's when Ethan appeared. He charged at me like a raging bull, his shoulder slamming hard into mine. He didn't even look back at me, he rushed straight to Emily and crouched in front of her.
Emily, are you okay?
Then he turned on me, eyes blazing.
What is wrong with you? Can't stand to see Emily get better. You came all the way to the hospital just to hurt her.
The impact sent me stumbling backward. I hit the stone pavement hard, the fall landing directly on my stomach. Pain shot through me instantly, draining the color from my face. Trembling, I reached out a hand. But he just stared at me coldly, the corner of his mouth curling with contempt.
Drop the act, Sarah. Pretending to be hurt isn't going to make me forgive you.
Then Emily's faint voice carried over.
Ethan, I'm in so much pain.
Immediately, Ethan swept Emily into his arms and sprinted toward the medical building, murmuring,
I've got you, Emily. The doctor's coming.
I was left alone on the cold stone floor, watching his back grow smaller and smaller until he disappeared. The pain in my abdomen was getting worse. My vision started to blur. I crawled toward the main path, and just before losing consciousness, I pressed the emergency call button. It wasn't until warm blood had soaked through my jeans and pulled across the pavement that the medical staff came rushing in and wheeled me into the operating room. When I woke up, all I saw was a white ceiling. A nurse held my hand and spoke gently.
Sweetheart, you're going to be okay. But the baby, I'm so sorry. You'll have another chance someday.
Now, in the present, I found myself pressing a hand to my flat stomach. The pain there was gone. But inside, there was an emptiness, wide and hollow. I'd drunk so many bitter herbal teas. I'd prayed for so long. And just like that, the baby was gone. Taken by his own father. Staring at the empty box and the divorce papers, tears slid silently down my face. It was over. All of it, this whole absurd chapter of my life was coming to an end. Colorado required a 91-day waiting period. Those 91 days, I would use to leave this place for good. The day after filing, I went to the Family Support Center on the base to confirm the divorce process. The counselor assigned to me was Mrs. Jones, a senior family liaison. She carefully reviewed the signed divorce petition and confirmed everything was in order under Colorado law.
Sarah, since you've both already signed, and this is an uncontested divorce,
Mrs. Jones said, making notes on the document.
Under Colorado law, there's a mandatory 91-day waiting period from the date of filing. Either party can withdraw the petition during that time.
She looked up at me.
But if neither of you objects before the 91 days are up, the court will issue a final decree once the period ends. Since there are no minor children involved and no complicated property disputes, the process should be fairly straightforward.
Mrs. Jones helped me organize everything I needed: the marriage certificate, a list of assets, and the signed petition.
I'll submit these to El Paso County Court on your behalf. Remember, the 91 days start from the date the court receives the documents.
I took a deep breath as I stepped out into the open air. 91 days. 3 months. Plenty of time to get everything in order and leave this place behind. On my way home, I passed the shopping mall in town. Through the glass, I spotted Ethan and Emily browsing Macy's. Emily held up a bright red off-shoulder cashmere sweater. Even through the window, I could tell it was a new season piece. The price tag was clearly visible, $495. I drifted a few steps closer. The automatic doors slid open, and I caught their conversation. Emily looped her arm through Ethan's.
Ethan, this sweater is stunning. But it's almost $500. Maybe I shouldn't.
Ethan looked at her with obvious affection, and reached for his credit card.
Get it. You just got out of the hospital. You deserve something nice.
The memory hit me like a wave. 2 weeks earlier, at the same mall, in the baby section, I had been holding a soft infant blanket printed with little bears. The price tag read, $48. Ethan had frowned.
Sarah, that's too expensive. Babies don't care what their blanket looks like. Walmart has perfectly good ones for $15. We have to be practical.
But for a $500 sweater, he said, you deserve something nice. Maybe my old coat was just too thin. A bone-deep chill settled over me. A bitter laugh caught in my throat. So he wasn't frugal after all. I just wasn't worth it. I wandered the streets aimlessly for a long time before heading home. Ethan was already there, sitting on the couch in the living room. When he saw how pale I looked, he stood up.
Are you feeling okay? Listen, I know you've been stressed lately. How about we go to Target this weekend and pick out some baby things together?
I glanced at the calendar on the wall. Ethan had circled a date in red marker. Emily's birthday? His lies had always been this sloppy. But I was too tired to care. I just nodded quietly.
Sure.
Day 5 after filing. When I woke up, Ethan was already gone. That afternoon, the little boy from next door, Billy, came knocking.
Mrs. Sarah,
Billy said, chewing his gum.
Ethan asked me to tell you he won't be home tonight. He's taking Emily to a show in Denver. Said he'll make it up to you tomorrow.
I ruffled his hair and fished a Hirsch kiss out of my pocket.
Thanks, Billy.
Billy grabbed the chocolate and bounded off, muttering as he went.
Weird. You're usually way more upset.
I stood there for a moment. He was right. In the past, every time Ethan left for Emily, I'd fall apart grabbing his sleeve, begging him not to go, calling him dozens of times, like someone losing my mind. And he would shake me off with disgust, calling me crazy, a control freak, exhausting. I had been crazy 99 times, but now, the photos were gone, the baby was gone, and every last illusion of happiness was gone too. This long act of self-deception had finally run its course. Ethan came home that night to find me sitting under the floor lamp, sewing a patchwork quilt. It was an American folk tradition. Over several months, I'd collected fabric scraps from military wives across the base, old clothes from different families, and slowly pieced them together by hand. Each scrap carried a piece of someone's story, a quiet blessing from the community. I'd wanted to make it for our baby, a wish for a long and happy life. The baby was gone. But I still wanted to finish it as a last tribute to him. Probably out of guilt, Ethan perched on the edge of the couch.
Need any help?
I didn't look up. I just shook my head gently. He sat down anyway, helping me untangle the colorful strips of fabric. In the warm lamplight, I caught his profile and, for just a moment, I almost forgot who he had become. Day 12 after filing, I went to the grocery store. On my way back, Emily cut me off at the front path.
Heard about the baby. That's such a shame.
She was holding the patchwork quilt I had finished sewing just the night before, swinging it idly.
But this quilt is really lovely. Since you don't need it anymore, you won't mind if I take it, will you?
I stared at her, incredulous.
How do you have that?
Emily's smile was triumphant.
Ethan gave it to me, of course. He said I just got out of the hospital and needed something full of positive energy to help me recover. Don't quilts bring health and longevity?
She put on a theatrical look of surprise, covering her mouth with one hand.
Oh wait. I forgot. Your baby's dead. I guess it doesn't need health or longevity anymore. It's not like the baby's here to use it. Might as well put it to good use, right?
Something inside me snapped. I lunged forward, reaching for the quilt. I'd already given up everything, even my husband. Why wouldn't she just leave me alone? That quilt was the last thing I had to remember my child by. Emily gripped it tight and leaned in close to my ear.
Don't you get it yet? I'm the one Ethan truly loves. You were just a convenience. As for your baby, honestly, good riddance.
Crack. I couldn't hold back anymore. I slapped her hard across the face.
Apologize. Apologize to my baby.
Before the words were even out, Ethan's voice thundered from down the street.
Sarah, what the hell are you doing?
The moment Emily heard him coming, she released the quilt and threw herself, sobbing, into his arms, making sure he had a perfect view of the red welt rising on her cheek.
Ethan, I only wanted to help Sarah fix her quilt, and she
Ethan stepped in front of Emily like a shield and looked at me as if I were an enemy.
Have you lost your mind? It's just a blanket, Sarah. Emily was trying to help.
I met Ethan's eyes. My voice shook.
You gave her that quilt. Do you have any idea what it was? That was the patchwork quilt I made for our baby.
Ethan's gaze flickered for just a moment, then slid away from mine.
Sarah, come on. I just thought. Emily's been in the hospital, and the quilt is supposed to bring good luck.
The words were so familiar. Emily's cold, give her your jacket. Emily needs nourishment, let her have the soup. I suddenly didn't want to hear another word. I didn't even want the quilt back. Whether he thought our baby didn't matter, or whether he thought Emily mattered more than everything, it made no difference to me, anymore. I let out a hollow smile.
Keep it.
Ethan blinked, clearly surprised, and seemed to breathe easier.
Sarah, I promise I'll buy the baby the best blanket. The softest one.
Don't bother.
The baby was gone. I was leaving. His promises now sounded nothing but hollow. Ethan took Emily to the clinic to treat the welt on her cheek. I walked back inside, and pulled the court papers from the drawer. 12 days since the filing. 79 left before the decree took effect. I opened my laptop and started planning my move back to New York. Reaching out to old colleagues, searching for apartments, putting my portfolio together. In Colorado, the 91-day waiting period was meant to give both parties time to reconsider. For me, it was a countdown, counting down the days until I was free of this marriage, free of this man. Day 30 after filing. A full month had passed, and Ethan still had no idea. He believed he'd signed some routine paperwork. He thought life was just continuing as normal. That evening, he was home for dinner for once. Emily had gone back to the East Coast temporarily, and the base felt quieter than usual.
Sarah,
Ethan said, setting down his fork.
I've been thinking. Once Emily gets back, maybe the three of us could sit down and clear the air. She really doesn't mean any harm.
I kept cutting my steak and didn't look up.
Whatever you think is best.
Ethan hesitated. In the past, I would have exploded, demanded to know why he always expected me to accept his friendship with Emily, cried and accused him of taking her side. But now I was calm. Still as standing water.
You've changed.
He said slowly.
You seem a lot more at peace lately.
People grow up.
I replied, without inflection. And I had. Grown up enough to know that some people don't deserve your tears. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Day 60 after filing, spring had finally softened Colorado. The snow in Pike National Forest was starting to melt, and the land around the base was slowly turning green. I ran into Mrs. Margaret at the Family Support Center, the base's family liaison officer.
Sarah,
She said, taking my hands, her expression complex.
how are you holding up?
I'm fine.
I said, managing a small smile. Mrs. Margaret sighed.
Sweetheart, I've seen so many military wives give everything for their husbands, only to be taken completely for granted. You deserve better than this.
She leaned in and lowered her voice.
Your paperwork is moving along nicely. 1 more month, and you'll be free. If he suddenly comes to his senses and tries to stop you, don't waver. Okay?
I nodded, blinking back the warmth behind my eyes. Over the past 2 months, I had been quietly dismantling my life here. Clearing out things I didn't need. Mailing valuables and important documents back to New York. Closing every account I had in this town. Like a spy preparing to vanish, I'd erased every trace of myself from this place. And Ethan hadn't noticed a thing. He still thought I'd finally come to my senses, that I'd learned to understand his so-called friendship with Emily. Day 85 after filing, 6 more days until the decree took effect. That evening, Ethan came home with Emily, who had returned from the East Coast, supposedly because she didn't adjust well and needed to recuperate back in Colorado. Before he'd even made it to the bedroom, something on the coffee table stopped him. The court's notice of pending final divorce decree sat on top. Beneath it, partially visible, was the hospital's miscarriage and surgical procedure report. Before Ethan could even react, Emily was already reading aloud from behind him, her voice sharp with excitement.
Pending final decree. Divorce.
Ethan shoved her aside and grabbed the papers off the table.
Ethan, what are you doing?
Emily tried to take his arm again. He threw her off without looking at her. The red court seal was impossible to ignore. El Paso County District Court, Family Division, notice of pending final divorce decree, petition filed, 85 days ago, end of mandatory waiting period, 6 days from now, if no objection is raised, the final decree will take effect upon expiration of the waiting period. Emily read the notice again, unable to hide her glee.
Ethan, this is wonderful news. She's finally letting you go?
Ethan spun around. He stared at Emily as if seeing her clearly for the first time. She flinched under his cold gaze, suddenly aware she'd said the wrong thing, and looked down.
I mean.
Ethan didn't respond. He seized the documents and walked out the door. No matter how Emily called after him, he didn't look back. 20 minutes later, Ethan burst into the family support center, papers in hand. Mrs. Jones was on duty. She looked up calmly as he stormed in.
Major Evans. What can I do for you?
He slapped the documents onto her desk, his voice unsteady.
What is this? I never agreed to a divorce. How could the court even accept this?
Mrs. Jones pointed to the signature at the bottom.
Major, that's your signature on the petition. In your handwriting.
I agreed to this. When would I ever?
His voice was nearly a shout.
This is your signature.
Mrs. Jones said, turning the page.
This petition was filed 85 days ago. Both parties had signed. No property disputes, no custody issues. It met every requirement for an uncontested divorce under Colorado law. The court followed standard procedure and set a 91-day waiting period.
85 days ago. The memory broke through like a flood. He remembered now, the morning he'd been in a rush. Sarah had handed him a stack of papers and he'd signed without looking. He'd assumed it was some routine household document. Maybe an insurance form. The papers crumpled in his fist. His voice dropped to a hoarse whisper.
I didn't know it was a divorce petition. She told me it was something else.
Mrs. Jones' expression hardened.
Major, that's your responsibility. You should have read any document before signing it. Especially a legal one.
The office door opened. Mrs. Margaret walked in. She took one look at Ethan and her face went cold.
Major Evans, I thought you had someone to take care of. What are you doing here?
Ethan straightened.
Mrs. Margaret, Emily is like a little sister to me. She didn't know anyone here. I was just...
A little sister.
Mrs. Margaret's voice dripped with sarcasm.
What kind of brother rushes to his sister's side at midnight? What kind of brother knocks his pregnant wife to the ground for his sister?
Ethan had no answer. Mrs. Jones tried to smooth things over.
Margaret, they're getting divorced anyway. Let's stay professional.
Gladly. This is the best decision Sarah has ever made.
Mrs. Margaret shot back.
She's put up with that drama queen Emily for years. She even had to sign her own surgical consent form after her miscarriage. Alone. Sarah has wasted more than enough of her life on this man.
Ethan's head snapped up, his expression twisting.
What did you say? What happened to Sarah's baby? When?
Mrs. Margaret faltered at the ferocity in his eyes, then pointed at the papers on the desk.
Read it yourself. It's all right there, the medical report. Miscarriage caused by blunt force trauma. If someone hadn't knocked Sarah to the ground, that baby would be 5 months old right now.
With trembling hands, Ethan turned to the report underneath. There was a black and white ultrasound image still showing the faint outline of a tiny form. His and Sarah's child. The report clearly stated, spontaneous miscarriage due to blunt force trauma.
Who did this to her? Who?
Mrs. Margaret looked at him steadily. A cold smile crossed her face.
Who else? You did, Major Evans. That day at the hospital, You knocked your own wife to the ground for Emily. Does it ring any bells now?
Ethan went rigid. The fragments clicked into place. The hospital garden, a few weeks ago. He'd been charging toward Emily, and he'd slammed hard into Sarah, who was in his way. Sarah's chalk white face as she lay on the pavement. Emily's triumphant smirk.
I have to go to the hospital. I have to ask.
He stumbled out of the room. When Ethan reached the hospital, he spotted Emily in the parking lot. She was heading toward her car, a thick envelope in her hand. He followed at a distance and watched her enter a medical office building. Through the window, he saw her step into Dr. Smith's private practice. The door was slightly ajar. He crept closer and listened.
Dr. Smith, here's this month's consulting fee.
Emily's voice.
Everything has been running smoothly. Emily.
The doctor sounded pleased with himself.
I've updated your chronic pain syndrome file. Next month's physical therapy and psychological counseling sessions are all booked. 3 years now. Your ongoing chronic condition requiring monitoring and recommended continuous mind-body treatment. TRICARE Insurance has never questioned it once. Of course not. 20 years in this field. As long as the medical records are written, strategically vague, with a consistent treatment history, insurance companies rarely investigate.
A note of self-satisfaction.
And this kind of psychosomatic pain can't be objectively verified or disproven. The perfect gray area.
Standing outside the door, Ethan felt as if the ground had fallen out beneath him. 3 years of so-called chronic illness. All of it a lie. The conversation continued inside.
I heard Major Evans is getting divorced. Things working out for you?
The doctor's voice was almost teasing.
Oh yes.
Emily's tone was light and vicious.
That woman lost the baby too. Everything went according to plan. Though I didn't kill the baby myself, Ethan did that all on his own. I just pushed her buttons, a little in the garden, pretended she'd shoved me, and Ethan went and knocked her flying like a fool. If he hadn't just left her there bleeding on the ground, maybe the baby could have been saved.
Ethan felt the world tilt. Nausea and guilt crashed over him in waves. It was him. He had killed his own child. For 3 years, he had been a fool, Emily's puppet, while he hurt, again and again, the woman who truly loved him. I just pushed her buttons a little. Ethan went and knocked her flying like a fool. Ethan threw open the door. Emily screamed. The envelope flew from her hands, and $100 bills scattered across the floor.
Ethan.
She went pale.
What are you doing here?
He stepped toward her, eyes red.
If I hadn't shown up, I never would have known you faked an illness for 3 years. I never would have known you set Sarah up that day. And the quilt. You manipulated me into taking it from her, just to hurt her. Didn't you? Sarah didn't slap you hard enough.
Emily backed into the wall. There was no way out. She dropped the act.
Fine. You know everything now. So what? I never forced you to push her. You chose me over her. That was your choice.
The words drove into him like a blade. She was right. No one forced him. His own blindness. His own cruelty. He had done this. Ethan stared at her, all warmth gone from his eyes, only revulsion remaining.
I'm reporting both of you to TRICARE's Fraud Investigation Unit and the military police. Dr. Smith, your medical license is finished. As for what I owe Sarah,
He paused.
I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right.
He turned and walked out. Behind him, Emily's hysterical sobs and pleas echoed through the room. Within a week, the scandal involving Emily and Dr. Smith had spread throughout the entire base. Once TRICARE investigators got involved, they uncovered over $150,000 in fraudulent claims, filed over 3 years. Emily was referred to the federal prosecutor's office on charges of insurance fraud. Dr. Smith had his license revoked and faced criminal prosecution. Ethan was not criminally charged, but the scandal and the questions raised about his conduct effectively ended any chance of promotion. Among his fellow officers, he could no longer hold his head up. Day 90 after filing. Tomorrow, the final divorce decree would take effect. I stood in the empty house, one last suitcase packed and waiting by the door. This place I had once believed would be my forever home now held nothing but a few pieces of furniture and a lot of bare walls. My phone buzzed. A message from New York. My old company was offering to rehire me at a better position and better pay than before. Everything was in place. Once the decree went through tomorrow, I would take the afternoon flight out of Colorado, back to New York. Back to that city blazing with lights and full of possibility. The doorbell rang. I opened the door. Ethan stood on the step, looking exhausted, worn hollow. In his hands were the empty Polaroid box and the patchwork quilt, freshly washed and folded.
Sarah,
His voice was rough.
can we talk, please?
I didn't invite him in. I leaned against the doorframe.
What do you want to say?
I know everything now. About Emily, about the baby, about all of it.
His eyes were red-rimmed.
I was an idiot. I was blind. I'm sorry. I'm truly, truly sorry. The divorce decree goes through tomorrow. But maybe we could stop it. Start over. I've cut Emily off completely. I reported her and the doctor.
Ethan,
I stopped him. My voice was quiet.
do you remember the 99 letters you sent me?
He stilled.
You made 99 promises. I gave you 99 chances,
I met his eyes.
and I burned 99 memories. One for every time you chose her over me. Some things, once you burn them, are gone forever. Like those photos. Like our baby.
Sarah, please.
There's a life waiting for me in New York. A career. A future. My tone was gentle but certain. A future without you.
But I love you. I never stopped.
There was a time I would have given anything to hear those words. Now they just sounded hollow.
If this is what your love looks like,
I said quietly.
then I don't want it.
I closed the door. Behind it, I heard him crying out. I didn't turn back. Day 91 after filing. At 9 o'clock in the morning, an email arrived from the court. The final divorce decree has been issued, and is now in effect. I stared at those words for a long moment. Then I let out a long, slow breath. Free. 3 years later. New York City. Inside a boutique fashion house on Fifth Avenue, I was arranging the new season's display. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city blazed with an autumn that looked like a painting.
Welcome to Sarah Designs.
I said out of habit, without looking up. No response. I raised my eyes, and met a pair of bloodshot, hollow, regretful ones. Ethan. In civilian clothes, looking worn. He stood in the doorway, holding the empty Polaroid box and the patchwork quilt.
Sarah,
His voice trembled.
is there really no chance at all? I know what Emily did. I reported her. She's facing federal charges. I've been in therapy, working on myself.
He drew a slow breath.
For the past 3 years, every single day, I've regretted what I did. And as for a baby, we're still young. We could try again. This time I'd be different. I'd do better.
I looked at him. I felt nothing. The young man who had once made my heart race now seemed like a stranger.
Ethan,
I said simply.
some things, once burned, can never be put back together. Like those photos. Like what we once had. One day I'll have a child. Just not with you.
Sarah, please give me one more chance.
I had already turned toward a client, who had just come through the door.
Lily, your custom piece is ready. Let me show you.
By the time I finished with my client, Ethan was still standing there like a statue. A security guard walked over and politely asked him to leave. From beginning to end, I never looked at him again. Many more years passed. I heard he never remarried. Every year, on his leave, he would come to New York, and spend the whole day sitting at the cafe across the street from my shop. I never gave him a single glance. In 2008, my fashion label launched nationally. Vogue ran a feature. The New York Times called me the designer redefining American elegance. And the man who had once made me cry had long since become a footnote, a small, forgettable chapter in the story of my life. Spring sunlight fell across the streets of Manhattan. I stood in front of my flagship store, looking at the new collection in the window. My life stretched ahead, bright and long, just like this light. Some people spend a lifetime in regret. Me? I spent mine in bloom.